In the shadowy corners of the world of darkness, they slumber, the ancient, godlike entities whose very existence shaped the destinies of all kindred and kind alike. They are the progenitors, the legends, and the nightmares, the Antediluvians. These are the vampires that will cause Gehenna when they awaken, and when they step back onto the earth, all will end. But which of these vampires reigns supreme in comparison to each other? From mind manipulation to the bending and weaving of flesh and bone, we're going to look at all of these antediluvians and we're going to estimate who is stronger than who. Out of all these antediluvians, which one should we fear the most? Is Gehenna preventable if only one of them awakens? We're going to go through all of them, including the antediluvians that diabolized, and we're going to rank them weakest to strongest, see how they compare to each other. Without further ado, let's get right into it. At the very bottom of the ranking is going to be Augustus Giovanni and Cappadocius. They're going to share a space. Now, why is Augustus Giovanni so low? Because he never fully diabolized Cappadocius. In terms of Vampire the Masquerade, he's playing the game right. This is a mafia simulator at the end of the day. He's doing everything he's supposed to. He is the Italian mafia. Nothing goes through without Augustus Giovanni's approval. But compared to other antediluvians, Augustus Giovanni is playing too within the box. He's going to pale in comparison. If another antediluvian shows up and wants to kill Augustus Giovanni, he's going to die. How many books do we have that involve Augustus Giovanni dying at the end of modules? He already lost a lot of resources after the Week of Nightmares, after the ghost that he was going to use to cause Ghostbusters. I'm not even kidding, that might as well be the lore and the plot. They're all gone, and there's the Giovanni Chronicles and multiple scenarios in Times of Judgment Gehenna where he dies to vampires that can only be as strong as, if you're going along with character creation, Generation 8, and that's it. As for Cappadocius himself, he really wasn't that much of a fighter. And it's a little ironic considering that both these people can raise the dead and command wraiths to do their bidding, but are you really that strong if you need ghosts to do all the fighting for you? Cappadocius was just a weirdo that wanted to die from day one after his embrace went wrong. And Augustus Giovanni, he might as well just be a really, really strong fourth generation, but because Cappadocius never paid up on his end of the bargain, he's never going to get to the point of any of the other antediluvians. One of the other antediluvians being Ilias. He's somewhere in this picture. I can't find a decisive picture as to what Ilias looks like. We have plenty of pictures of Troil, but none of Ilias. A little messed up, ain't it? And Ilias, it's the Bruja Antediluvian. I'm going off of the name Ilias because that is what Lilith calls him, or maybe it's her. It's a little up in the air as to what gender the Bruja Antediluvian is supposed to be. This is somebody that can jump across continents with a single bound, punch so hard it can split the atmosphere and just create fissures and earthquakes within the ground, who's moving so quickly, it's like the Flash, where she, or maybe he, can run into the future and into the past with how quickly they're moving. On a molecular level, he can just phase through anything because he's moving so quickly through the atomic particles. There's nothing Ilias can't do physically, but Ilias doesn't fight. The irony. We remember the second generation and how they were diabolized and killed by the third generation. Ilias didn't fight. Ilias participated, but Troil the Younger did all the fighting for Ilias on Ilias's behalf, which is what led to Troil turning on Ilias during that time. The one that took down Erad the Strong, it wasn't the Bruja Antediluvian, it was Troil. So how good of an antediluvian is there with an antediluvian that doesn't fight? If Ilias did throw a punch, I mean, we're talking about a vampire that can stop time and go back and forward in time, and if you want to get crazy with Mage Ascension rules, could reasonably occupy multiple spaces at the same time, given that I don't think Paradox affects this antediluvian magic. But Yeah, until Ilias gets motivated, you're just one spot above Giovanni. And the last Antediluvian we have that doesn't have a picture, so we're just going to use a picture of Mithras instead, is Vadartha, one of the many names of the Ventrue Antediluvian. And once again, somebody who was incredibly powerful, who could do anything to anyone with the sound of his voice. He said a command, it went through. That's what happened. So why is he this low? He's already dead. We have confirmation that he's already dead. The Lasombra will tell you that Lasombra killed him. His clan book says that he was killed by the Lasombra Antediluvian. This guy's already dead, so I guess we don't have to worry about him, right? If these three were to cause Gehenna, you could prevent it. Giovanni, there's multiple books where he dies. Cappadocius had no interest in causing Gehenna. Ilias has no interest, and Vadartha, well, you can only use Dominate on one person at a time, unless you go into really high levels of Dominate, but even so, what is this power going to do against somebody who's deaf, dumb, and blind? Or who just doesn't care what you're saying and is blinded by hatred and is just going to kill you no matter what you do, like what Lasombra did. Vadartha, you died a hero's death, but you really weren't the man that you were supposed to be. That's it for bottom tier. If you disagree with the placement of Tremere on this list, you can blame my subscribers over the debate we had as to whether or not Tremere was as strong as I thought he was, or as strong as they thought he was. So we're reaching a happy compromise for putting him at the very bottom of mid-tier. The vampires that are pretty strong, but there are vampires out there that are way stronger than them. Tremere is good for about one kill of an Antediluvian. The leader of the Tremere, he named a clan after himself. He was able to smite vampires like the Eldest. He won those fights, but then the next fight he goes into, he immediately loses. So we're putting him here. He's very strong. His clan is very strong. The Tremere is the nuclear deterrent that prevents the Sabbat from taking over the Camarilla. He is incredibly powerful. He has a ton of magic that he ponied over from the Order of Hermes. He still has that magic to an extent, but he's not nearly as strong as he could have been if he just ascended normally. This man's own short-sighted decisions ruined his clan and ruined the world. No man out there has caused more damage than Tremere, and yes, we are using this picture of Tremere. It's what he's always looked like on the inside. He just looks like this on the outside now. As for Tremere in a fight, Tremere is really strong, but looking at his history, Atreus and Goratrix really did more heavy lifting than Tremere did. We never really get to see a clear picture of Tremere's power in vampire text itself. We just know that he reigns in Atreus and Goratrix. He's really strong, and we don't see him let loose until we get to Times of Judgment Gehenna, where, yes, he is the leader of House Tremere. He has the magic to prove it. But he fizzles out after one fight, and either another Antediluvian can get the kill, or you, the players, can get the kill. It really varies with Tremere, depending on who wrote the scenario, and how strong you think sorcery is in comparison to other vampire magic. But yeah, until somebody comes and writes a really good Tremere fanfic, or adds on the Vampire the Masquerade story, he's going here. We can't figure out anywhere else to put him. He's going at the bottom of mid. And we might as well use just about every vampire that's in this picture for this next segment, as I basically used set as a benchmark for mid-tier. At the second to bottom of mid-tier is Enoya, the gangrel Antediluvian, this big tiger in this picture. And she is strong for animal standards. Her whole thing is that she just wants to be an animal forever. She wears the skins of many animals. She runs around in nature as the alpha predator when she's not in torpor. And she did pull a lot of weight with Ravnos during their fight with the Kuei Jin, but that was always Ravnos' war with the Kuei Jin, and Noya was there just to help out. And there are theories that she has this connection to Gaia, or that Lilith is Gaia, and like this is the Gaian vampire, but we're going off into theories. I'm not going to delve into that. She's not super strong. You do have the Crucible of God scenario where she fuses with the planet, and has this giant set of teeth that she can just use to eat entire cities, but I want to contribute that power to Gaia rather than Inoya. It's more like Inoya is sitting in the control seat while Gaia is doing the heavy lifting. This is power that Gaia always had, just never used. So really, she's just as strong as a big damn animal. And why am I putting her above Ilias if that's the case? Fortitude, that's the reason why. Fortitude is a very underrated discipline. It can do many things. If she's able to shake off Ventrue mind control and survive a Bruja punch, then I'm putting her here. Next to her would be Malkav, a guy who is very hard to place. So I'm placing him here. Those little kids, for some reason, they're all Malkav. This is the form that he wants to take during Times of Judgment. Where Malkav is kind of like Schrodinger from Hellsing, if you ever watched that anime, where he exists in multiple spaces at one time, given that he let his physical body die so he can occupy multiple spaces and possess his clan as the Malkavian Madness Network. And everything going on with the Malkavians, it's him whispering in their ears. So he's only as strong as his clan is, and given that his clan is only ever made up of Generation 4s, that's not that impressive. You can't Dev Rise way up to G3. Sorry, we never had a Malkavian find an Antediluvian to do that. But he is still strong. He knows everything. He can see the past, present, and future all at the same time. He knows how the story's going to plan out. He knows that he's probably not going to win, or maybe he does win. Only he knows the story. So, as long as he still has his clan, he's strong. But if they were all, I don't know, to suddenly die, or this massive curse was placed on them by the Assamites and all their heads popped off one day, there goes Malkav's power with it. As long as the Malkavian vampire exists, he exists. So, you see what I mean by it's hard to place Malkav because of just how abstract Malkav is. Behind him is his sister Erikil, that beautiful lady over there, the leader of the Toreador. And she is incredibly beautiful, and that's it, really. That's all we really know about her. She has these kind of god-queen aspirations, but she's not really hostile towards anybody. She's so beautiful that just being in the same room with her, feeling her body heat, smelling her, hearing her voice will immediately put you under her spell. But that's it. And there's a lot of other Antediluvians that are able to resist that. Salat, for example. And we haven't even gotten to him. And that, I wish I had more on this Erikil segment, but that really is all there is. And she is serving Set in her one and only physical appearance in Vampire the Masquerade. So if you can't charm Set, the sex god, then I'm sorry, maybe you're not that beautiful and Toreador is just full of smoke. Next to that, well, skipping over the shadowy guy, and it's one of these two cloaked figures. I can't tell who's who because the artistry, these faces both look pretty ugly. We'll just say one of them is Absimiliard. Absimiliard was already really badass before he became a vampire. This man was the prime human hunter. He was going around fighting T-Rexes and fought with only a spear and a loincloth and won those fights. Enough to impress Zilla, who of course attacked him, had their night of fun off in the grass, and turned him into a vampire that would go off to start the Niktuku and Nosferatu. I'm using Baba Yaga as a benchmark with Absimiliard 2, where I'm saying if an Antediluvian's child can use the power, so can the Antediluvian. And Baba Yaga was ridiculous. She was able to raise the shadow veil that prevented supernaturals from crossing over Russia's border. So that's ludicrous in my opinion. You created a bubble that only certain parts of the world of darkness could interact with, and you had a war where you had the Silverfangs and Shadow Lords on the ropes for 10 years before Vasilisa found a way to cross over and smite you. So I'm assuming Absimiliard can raise a similar veil and pierce his own veil just the same. As for Absimiliard himself, he has made multiple appearances in Werewolf the Apocalypse as Kolshe, the evil wormish king of ice. And Vasilisa, we get to see what Vasilisa can do, his most trusted assassin, in that same book. Because after all, Absimiliard jumps around and can go and turn invisible. He's got incredible physical power with potence. You can even perceive this guy as he sneaks up to you, and Baba Yaga couldn't when Vasilisa snuck up and zeroed her in mere seconds. It took the Silverfangs 10 years to reach this woman. It takes Vasilisa 1 minute to get the kill. Incredible, right? And you've got Clan Nosferatu on the ropes with the Niktuku. You're out trying to smite your own clan. You've come very close because the Niktuku are ludicrous in power. Have you seen their stat blocks? Have you seen that discipline spread? It is very good. Absimirid is very strong, but Absimirid hasn't done much to build himself up. Once again, he's thinking inside the box, like the other Antediluvians below him. He's so focused on stealing power away from the eldest that he's never bothered to build himself up. He has no game plan besides, I hate people, I want to see people suffer. He does have a connection with the worm and a lot of power with the worm, but that's it really. He doesn't have any prospects beyond just being evil, being an asshole. Nobody likes Absimirid, so mid-tiers as far as you go. And no, come to think of it, let's put you in high tier instead. Next segment, everybody. Now, who is this little boy? This can't possibly be an Antediluvian. It is. It's Salat. One of my favorite bits about Times of Judgment Gehenna is that the progenitors cloned him. We have an entire Salat clone, and he's got a new clone body. This is another Antediluvian that would be dead and would be bottom tier with Vidartha, but no, he's got a body. He's just sitting here. He's chilling. He's still alive. Brought back by the power of science. Thank you, progenitors. You finally did something good. Salat has a very weird placement. Salat isn't that much of a fighter, but we finally get to see him throw hands in Times of Judgment Gehenna. And Transylvania Chronicles, depending on how you see him, Salat may or may not be a dangerous person, but let's take a look at what Valoran does. Where you take a close look at the description, he's controlling souls to an extent. Where K-Ent is able to cause your heart to explode, he can cause your soul to explode. He can heal you, or he can destroy you with a wave of his hand. And looking at our big 3 Kahuna vampires, he does manage to take down one of them, and he does save the world, but he requires a lot of assistance to do that. I would have put Salat on top tier, but he needs your help in order to reach his true power. And on top of that, he does need God to come in and give him a helping hand, but Salat is on this list because, well, the Tremere were all halfway right about that soul-sucking power. Salat has the power to do that, and if he were in an older body, he could save all of humanity by himself. Just a shame that the progenitors didn't pump up with growth hormone. Alright, next guy is, well, the Antediluvian that caused the weekend nightmares. You know who this is. You've seen his picture a dozen times. It's Ravnos. It's Ravnos. Of course it's Ravnos. The guy that was raging a holy war against the Kuei Jin, the forces of the Yama Kings, the forces of the Worm, by himself with his family, and he was making more progress than the Geru Nation has in China. The only reason why the Kuei Jin are everywhere is because this guy had to go into torpor, and while he was in torpor, his clan went to shit, and the holy war fizzled out over most of the world. Everyone in the Ravnos, it's in Europe, just doesn't even know that the war is going on anymore. The Indian Ravnos mass embraced and are now filled with Kadif and Thin Bloods, thus sparking the weekend nightmares when they all died. Yeah, but Ravnos, you look at this guy, he was fighting off the technocracy by himself. You look at the feats that are in Times of Judgment Gehenna with La Sombra and the Eldest, they're incredible, but they didn't have a full country's force bearing down their heads the entire time. By that point, it was too late. But Ravnos was face-to-face with Indians, the Indian government's army, along with all the Black Ops stuff that the Technocracy had. They went DEFCON 1 to fight this guy. They were dropping ICBMs on this guy's head, and he survived those blasts. It took a laser from the sun to kill him, but we're not sure that he's dead. It's Ravnos. It's the Ravnos. They're known for being liars. They're known for being masters of deception. This guy has the power over illusions, where the illusions become so realistic, you think they're real, and your belief in them being real makes them real. This guy was throwing out all these different lightning bolts and storms that were sweeping across India. This man almost destroyed Bangladesh on accident. This guy was wiping out satellites in space. He is ludicrous in power. If Ravnos can think of something, he can do it. At least that's how I understand his power working. I mean, I could just be horribly wrong about that, but still. This guy was on the path of wiping out the Kuei Jin by himself in the sun. That goes and speaks as to how strong Ravnos is. On top of that, you won't look at their generation, this man's generation. While everyone else we've talked about has been third generation, this guy is second. K-Ent directly sired him. Don't believe in what you see in Revised. Look at first edition for this. This guy has a sample of K-Ent's power. With what we saw with Ravnos and the Weekend Nightmares, that's just a small sample as to what K-Ent can do. K-Ent, of course, would top the list no matter what, but, you know, K-Ent is K-Ent, and K-Ent's not the man that the Sabbat thought he was going to be. But Ravnos, that's still significant power from him. And on the other side of the coin is the man that came close to defeating K-Ent, but because K-Ent is K-Ent, that's impossible, Hakim. I don't have a better picture of Hakim. There is a visual depiction of him, but it's not that good of a picture, so we're just going to use this picture that's Shulgi. Yeah. Hakim is described as a sandstorm. As to whether or not that's what he literally looks like, or it's just a metaphor, this man goes in, sweeps a battlefield in seconds, he's out. This man has quietus, the mastery over blood. He can cause your heart to explode just by walking past you. He just needs to make physical contact with you, and that's it. At low levels. At high level quietus, this man can just cause you to drown in your own blood from just looking at him, or him looking at you. This man can end entire armies by just waving his hand or breathing, and that's it. You all need blood to survive, and you can't just have hit markers save your life. The Tenocracy is eventually going to run out of robots, and Hakim was a really strong fighter. He took out the first king and first queen of the first city by himself after he realized they weren't the men and women that he thought they were, and went off into the well, you know where it is, the Iranian mountains, where he found the Assamites, had this entire civilization of assassins. This man has this ridiculous 14-year-long training regiment where he makes the best killers in the world of darkness. If Hakim can't do it, his assassins can. Masters of disguise, masters of stealth, masters of killing. Alamut, that's what it's called. And we want to bring clan strength into a matter too. There is no clan out there stronger than the Assamites. It's only their insane craving for blood, for vampire vitae, that prevents them from being the killers that could rule the world. And Islam did get in the way, and the Assamites collapsed, and now Hakim is without a clan, but Hakim didn't really need that because the man himself is so ludicrously powerful. There's very little you can do to stop this guy in times of Judgment Gehenna, and just about every fight Hakim goes into, he wins. I mean, that's the stat sheet right over there. You encounter Hakim, you lose. There's very little you can do against this man. You take the best aspects of, what, Salat, Ravnos, and Absimiliard, you wrap them up into one Antediluvian, that's Hakim. And believe it or not, there's 3 Antediluvians that are stronger than him. Let's get into it. Peak tier time. Starting off peak tier is that little sourpuss sitting next to Inoya and Malkav. You probably missed him the first time you saw that picture. That is Lasombra. The Lasombra, the guy that supposedly died after Graziano de Veronese diabolized him. Nope, that was a fake body. He organized that entire revolt. The Anarchs never achieved anything. But why is he here? Why is he this high? He's very similar to Ilias in a lot of ways. Lasombra never had any interest in doing anything because he was a failure. The man always assumed he was going to be a failure and just stewed in the Mediterranean Sea, being the sea monster, being the Krakens, devouring ships, talking with demons for greater power, and eventually mastering Obtenebration, where he was using the abyss itself, cessation of existence itself, as a weapon. But he never really cared about having a clan and just did what he wanted out of despair. Why is he this high when I put Ilias this low? Because Lasombra got motivated and did something. This one feat alone is the reason why I put him this high. In times of Judgment Gehenna, this man blots out the sun. He turns himself into this massive pillar that can be seen from all across the world He reaches into the sky and blots it out. And there was nothing but darkness for 7 days. And that has a lot of effects to it. Do you know what being abandoned by the sun would do to the planet? You would have a new ice age come in. It'll be 7 days, but Lasombra caused a small heat death on the planet that killed, what, it's crucible of God. Just about everyone dies in that version of Gehenna. Yeah, who's to say just how much damage Lasombra would have done from doing that? That lasted for 7 days before it just disappeared. And we assume Lasombra died in that, but there is no hard confirmation. He could have just called off the spell. He could have just retreated back into the mid-ocean ridge where he's trying to shove his face in and reach the gate to hell, or whatever he's trying to do in that. I mean, you try to talk to this guy. He doesn't talk to anybody. Just that alone, where he could do that the entire time. Ilias, yeah, you can stop time. You can rewind time, but you can't fight that. You can't fight a being that is the darkness itself. How are you going to punch this? How are you going to win this fight? We have no idea how strong Lasombra is, and it's just his lack of motivation is what prevents him from being top tier. But right above him is Set, where this is another decision that seems completely bonkers. Why is Set this high? Didn't this guy lose to werewolves? Wasn't this guy put in torpor by the Silent Striders? Well, yes, but Set has a lot of magic. The Tremere like to boast about all their spells, but no, they stole a lot of that from the Setites. The Setites were already playing with blood magic before Tremere stepped to the scene. This guy has, when was he put into torpor? 6000 BC, we'll say is a ballpark estimate of when those events happened in his clan book. So for thousands of years, his followers have been sacrificing themselves or other people to him in hopes for his resurrection. And all of those souls start stewing around. That is millennia of sacrifices, and when Set comes back, the whole world feels it. He now comes back as the strongest of the Antediluvians, surging with power. The years and years of devotion aiding to him. You remember how the Celestial Choristers get their power from believing in God? Well, what's a mage's power going to look like when somebody believes in you? He comes in and he subjugates a ton of the Antediluvians. Everybody in that picture, Enoya, Lasombra, even Absimiliard, Malkav, Arakel, were all brought to heel by Set. Set comes in and he is so strong, his majesty, other Antediluvians know they can't win that fight. And when he appears in Times of Judgment Gehenna, the fight's beneath him. He just takes all of his followers and either eats them or just teleports to a greater place. So he could do that now? He just comes back into existence after being dead for that long, and he can just teleport somewhere? Well, it seems those god aspirations paid off, and he managed to stick his foot through the god door first. So Set's power is in the same kind of like abstract sphere as Malkav, but you look at that before he became kind of hard to place. This man supposedly went into hell and fought an aspect of the worm in a pep. And if you're looking at Mummy the Resurrection, a pep might be something even deadlier than wormish in nature. So how strong is Set where he can just do this? And apparently he has a solution where he can just quit the World of Darkness game and go off and play a game somewhere else. This guy's power, I wish we had more information on Set, because I really do like this guy as an antagonist, but that's part of the Antediluvians. They're going to be a little enigmatic. But Set needs to be revived to kick off his win conditions. This guy doesn't. Yep, you knew he was coming, but process of elimination. Ximichi, the eldest. Where else were we going to put this guy? This guy was a mage that was bordering on ascension before he was embraced by King Enoch, after Enoch tried to remove all the evil from himself and put it inside the eldest. The eldest took it, ran off into the wilderness with it, and then became the mastermind of Vampire the Masquerade. There is nobody in Vampire smarter than the eldest. This guy was over using vicissitude after he made his pact with Kupala, and that devil deal sent him for life. He was creating all these monsters that nobody knew how to fight. He was making Fomori before the Defiler Worm figured out the prospects of making Fomori. And with his power, he was tearing off little pieces of himself, throwing them out in nature. A bird eats it, something scavenges it. His DNA is out there. His DNA might be in every living creature out there. And he can just flip the switch like he does in Crucible of God, where he has all the world fused into his biomass. You may be saying, how big is that biomass? The entire Carpathian Mountains. That's how big his body is. He's just hollowed all of them out. He's dug holes to China and America where he can just pop out like he's doing in this picture. That's New York City that he's in the middle of. He can just do that. And that's just a small piece of Zenitsu that you're fighting. This man had his own clan participate in the Anarch Revolt. He was controlling the whole thing. He was possessing Lugos the entire time. And he goes in, he screws Kupala out of their devil deal. He doesn't need her anymore. He doesn't need his clan anymore because he's already won. At any point, this guy can just fuse the world into his body and win the World of Darkness. He doesn't need to worry about anything anymore. He will become the planet, and all life will exist inside of Zenitsu. Is there a way you can stop it? No. The time to stop it, that has long since passed. And the only people that could stop it, say Ilias, where you go back in time to fight this guy before he's embraced, that's not going to work because you're not going to get him up in time. So, yes, without a doubt, this guy is the strongest of all the Antediluvians. Can we get a big round of applause for the Eldest for winning the World Darkness game? Come over and claim your trophy, big man.